welcome to another episode of Divine Downloads with Cassandra Botzak. I am so excited to be coming at you live from the French Alps, Val d'Isere. I'm here on a little early birthday trip with my fiance to go skiing and just enjoy this fabulous little French Alp town. And I wanted to pop on to just give you my download on this full moon in Leo because I love a good moon in Leo. I love a good moon in Leo because I feel like, even though I'm not a Leo, very much, I feel like my work with women is very evoking the Leo energy in them, right? So what that really means is activating their courage, activating their confidence, activating their roar, so to speak, right? So that they can kind of show up in their life in a more courageous way where they're acting from their heart, they're honoring their soul, and they're being bold and going for what they want. So when it was the full moon in Leo, I was like, yeah, you know what, I'm on vacation, but I gotta get on. I gotta do a podcast about this because I think we have some really beautiful energy coming in right now where, the difference between a full moon and a new moon, as it pertains to this, right, is that a full moon is kind of the culmination of a bunch of different things. I think about it as like the new moon is the time where you plant the seeds, right? The new moon would be the time where maybe you start building something, right? And then the full moon is when you put the finishing touches on it and it is complete. The full moon is when you can pick the berries off of the strawberry bush you planted, right? And so if we think about that in the context of kind of that Leo energy, it's like we've had a lot of stuff these past few months, maybe these past 6 months perhaps, right? Where we have been building up to this point right now where we can more confidently and courageously stand in our truth of our heart beyond this full moon. And so it's almost like this culmination point, I feel, more than it is. Full moons are also times for releasing, right? So you could think about it like this: releasing all the different things that maybe have stopped you in the past from showing up as your most courageous self, that have stopped you in the past from shining your brightest, from really going for the thing that sets your heart on fire. Um, and and that culmination of the past couple months, that really being illuminated to you really being able to see, wow, here are the places where I stay small. Here are the places where I compromise. Here are the places where I get too scared or I get too fearful or I don't pull the trigger or I don't invest in myself or I don't discipline myself or I don't give the time to this, right? Whatever your kind of elixir of self sabotaging, your elixir of fear that oppresses you, right? That doesn't let you be that lion that we all have Leo energy in us. We are all capable of tuning into that energy, right? Another way of thinking about Leo energy could be like thinking of almost um like a goddess, right? Like a warrior goddess, like a goddess that is, beautiful and radiant and strong, that's not afraid to say what she wants to say, that's not afraid to, make something happen. I almost think of like a Cleopatra energy now as I'm coming at, where it was like very much this like, Leo, if you think about the how lions have that beautiful mane, right? It's almost like the way, if you think about Cleopatra with her jewels and her hair and her makeup, right? Um, this beautiful frame, so to speak, right? But that energy that really meets it, that energy that's really equivalent to it, that really steps in. And I feel that kind of Cleopatra had very much like lioness energy, right? Where it was, not only in her majesty, not only in her beauty, but also in the fact that she wasn't afraid to do courageous things. She wasn't afraid to make ballsy moves, so to speak. She wasn't afraid to go after what she wanted, to have great love, right? And I think that is the energy that's evoked right now. It's really saying, okay, Where can you be courageous um, for the pursuits of your heart? Um, and, one of the stories that came to mind that I think I might share on Instagram in, a more succinct fashion. But being here in Val d'Isere with my fiance, and really both of us love, love, love to travel. We love to travel. We love especially to travel to Europe. And that is something that I remember when I was single back in the day a few years ago. I've been traveling probably, once every month or 2 months for the past like 7 years since I started my business and was location independent. I've been like traveling, 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 traveling. I love to travel. And when I was single and, would mention to someone how, yeah, of course I'm dating, yeah, I want to meet someone, a lot of people would comment and say, well, it might be good to stay in one place, Cass. It's going to be hard for you to really build something if you're always moving around, right? And so it was really interesting because I remember having one particular conversation with my father about it. And, he used to say when things wouldn't work out with me and guys, he would always say, Cass, you're a lot to keep up with. And that's not a bad thing, but it's going to take a special guy that's able to run with you. And so if they're eliminating themselves or they're falling short or whatnot, let them. They're not your guy. And I remember there was a Sex in the City quote that I used to have everywhere in my journals and my phone and stuff. That was, maybe some women aren't meant to be tamed. Maybe they're just meant to find someone wild enough to run with them. And I remember telling my dad that quote one day when we were talking about this and him being like, that's exactly you, right? And I remember having a moment just a couple days ago when we got here and we were driving the car from Geneva up a mountain to get to Val d'Isere. And I'm going to Barcelona next month, and then we're going to New Orleans, and we have an Italy trip planned, and we have all these things, and I'm going to Dubai and Bali. And he's so supportive of my trips. I told him that me and a bunch of my girlfriends are going to Bali, and he was like, of course you got to go to Bali with the girls. Right? And I'm going to Barcelona for a work thing, and again, of course, right? Where I've had so many partners in the past that were like, you know frustrated that I was always gone or hated that I traveled so much or didn't want to travel with me. And really having that moment of, wow, I'm so glad that I was courageous enough to honor that part of my heart, right? That I was courageous enough to say, hey, I'm not going to stop my life and what lights me up because I want someone that can roll with that, right? And because of that, I was able to attract that, right? Because I didn't make that part of me small, right? And I didn't compromise on that, right? Because I honored my truth in those areas, and even if whoever I was in a relationship with, I was still traveling all the time and doing the things. It was easy for me to see who couldn't hang, right? And I think that for those of you looking for love right now, that's a big message with this full moon. Be courageous enough to honor your heart's desires. Be courageous enough to honor the things that are important for you in life. And there is a romantic energy to this full moon. This is a time for you to also think about, okay, what are the things that maybe I'm not vocalizing in relationships or in my love life? Where am I not being brave enough, right? Where am I not maybe putting myself out there? Maybe where am I not communicating who I truly am, the truth in my heart? Another tangent on that is I remember I was talking with my girlfriends about, how do you bring up, all of us are super spiritual and stuff. And they're like, how do you bring up spirituality? How do you bring up God? How do you bring up, that whole part of your life? And I remember saying, I bring it up right away. I drop the G bomb on the first date and see how they handle it. And I remember distinctly with Patrick, we even had a conversation. I had dropped it a few times and I noticed that he didn't flinch. He was like cool with it. And then one night when once I really started to like him, it was a few nights in And I was like, I want to talk about God. And he was like, okay, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, tell me about a little bit about your relationship with God. This is a big part of my life and a part of my work. And whether you call it God or the universe or source or love or whatnot, like, what do you believe? What's your history with that? Anyway, a lot of my girlfriends would be like, you're crazy, girl. Talking about God on the first date. You trying to get a second date? And I was like, I don't want a second date if they can't talk about God. Right? And I think so often we, when we want something, we hide a part of ourselves that perhaps that we're scared of being rejected, or we're scared of someone not accepting, or we're scared of making it harder to attract that thing. But in reality, it's kind of like this catch 22. When you don't own that part of yourself, you are actually delaying that manifestation, because you're not standing up in the courage and the truth of who you are, which is the most attractive thing you can do, right? And to put that into the career zone, right? It's very similar. It's really honoring what lights you up, ignoring, what maybe someone else's commentary is going to be on it. Ignoring maybe, I work with a lot of women that shift from their corporate jobs to doing their own, coaching thing. And so all of a sudden they're wanting to talk about self-care and meditation and kale smoothies or whatever they want to talk about, right? Their yoga on their Instagram, and they're scared about people from their past life or their corporate life, or who they went to high school with or college with or whoever, looking at that and judging them. And I think this full moon is saying, stop it, stop it, stop it. If you want to get to this next level, if you want to attract that next level, or manifest that thing that you're calling in, whether it's a relationship or a new career or whatnot, or happiness, right? True fulfillment comes when we really honor our heart. There's also Mercury in Pisces right now, right? So communication can be a little, I have Mercury in Pisces in my chart, right? So I can speak to this so well. Communication can be a little hard. And so as far as like expressing how you truly feel, one of the things that can be really helpful is doing it through creative mediums, right? So I'm always listening to music, and a lot of times, if I'm going through something, it has been more helpful for me to send a song to someone about it. Not my song, but just a song that I'm listening to that I feel like resonates with how I feel, than for me to articulate it. Even with my partner, I will write him notes when I really want to articulate something romantically. I'm better in more creative art forms. I'm great at writing poetry. So if you think about that, that energy is abound right now for all of us, right? So that's just in my chart, period. But that's abound for all of us. So if your part of your Leo energy is expressing something that feels vulnerable, that feels like your heart's truth, but it feels a little tricky right now, in the Pisces energy, it's allowing your creativity to flow in the way that you communicate that, right? And using those creative things. So maybe it is journaling, maybe it is doing a ritual, maybe it is listening to the music or painting or collaging or whatever is artistic to you, writing poetry, reading poetry, so that you can try to articulate what that truth in your heart is at this full moon. Because when we honor that truth, when we start speaking it, so perhaps even in your career, it could be something like, I really want to help these kinds of women, but I'm scared that, what if I start talking to that specific kind of women, then I'll lose out on all the guys that follow me, or I'll lose out on all these other people that follow me, right? And it's saying, stop it, stop it, stop it. Listen to your heart. Same thing if you're feeling called to artistically express yourself in different ways. Maybe you're thinking, I really want to do a podcast, but I hate my voice, or I really want to do a podcast, but what if no one listens? Who cares if no one listens? That is not the point, right? There were so many years of me claiming my truth in my heart about loving to travel, about wanting to do that, before it manifested in my partnerships. A great example of this is the Miracle Mastermind that I just launched. I had been having that desire in my heart for years. Those of you who follow me know that I started doing A Course in Miracles on Periscope. I did it on YouTube. It had kind of peaked up on so many different occasions, but at those different times I didn't have the courage to fully follow through. I thought, this is so ballsy. Who am I to teach the Course in Miracles? Who is going to even want to have me teach it to them? Do people even know how epic this book is, even though I know in my heart how much it's changed my life? I know in my heart how much it's transformed me. But what if no one else gets it? What if everybody thinks it's a crazy book? Right? It was so much safer to talk, use the concepts of the course and just infuse it into my message, which it has been for literally my entire career. Right. And so only the past couple of months, right, did I fully courageously step into that thing that lights me up and say, oh my gosh, this is the thing that I know makes me illuminated, makes me shine, right? This is the thing that I feel so called to share with the world because if I know what it can do for them as well. And I'm going to do it courageously. And I am willing to put this out there and accept what happens. And I think that's something that, I almost did an Instagram story on this the other day. I did the story and we're in horrible reception sometimes, so it didn't go through and it ended up getting erased. But of course, I meant to be telling it, so it ends up here on the podcast. But I think sometimes people look at me or people like me and maybe you're like, oh, they have all these followers. They've been doing coaching for almost a decade. They've had their own business, yada, yada, yada. They're at this completely different part in their lives where they're probably not worried about, what they talk about or what they're launching or whatever. And from the outside looking in, I'm sure that can seem like the case sometimes, maybe for some of you at least. And the truth is that I don't think that's ever the case, right? I have, myself and I have a lot of other friends that are, of course, at that certain level in their careers, and we're still always taking courageous, heart centered action. And it may look like on the outside to you, like no big deal or whatever. A lot of people, when I started talking about A Course in Miracles and offering this, were like, I've been waiting years for you to offer this since you started talking about it on Periscope. I'm so glad you finally came around to it. I also had a lot of people that told me, hey, I wish we were doing this thing instead of that. Or, A Course in Miracles is kind of a couple years ago for me, so it's like you don't win it. You don't win with everyone. And everything has its risks. And I knew going into it that there were a lot of risks as far as, people might not resonate with it. People might not want to commit to what it takes. People might not be open to the course, right? Or the language of it or whatnot. They might not associate me with someone they want to learn the course from. There were so many risks. Anytime we courageously follow our heart, it feels like we're taking a risk. But on the other side of it, there is so much joy. There is so much bliss. There is so much, radiance to be had, right? So the same thing that goes, when I met my fiance and we were traveling the world together within like a month. And we're, in Berlin and Copenhagen and Paris. And the next month we're in Austria and Poland. And, the next month we're in Israel and he's flying out there. And, now we're in the French Alps and, all these different places, right? I have these moments, right? When I look at him or I'm just walking around and I'm cognizant of how courageous I had to be to hold out for him, right? How courageous I had to be to truly claim what I know lights me up. And, that's going to be different for all of us, right? But, on the contrary of this, here's an interesting thing just on the subject of romantic love. I looked at a man that I dated a few years ago. I ran across his one of his posts on Instagram because he's came up with a book, and I have, we both have a very amicable relationship now. Nothing bad happened. We just kind of looked at each other at a certain point in our relationship and we're like, this isn't it. Like, you're awesome, but like, this isn't it. And I saw a video of him with his current girlfriend, and it made me so happy because one of the things that I remember about him that I felt was a little bit of an incompatibility with us was that he was very musical. He loved to like play guitar for me and serenade me. He loved to play the piano. He had a great voice. Very, very, very talented guy. And I kind of had this feeling, I always felt that like I wished I was that person for him that would, just sit on the couch with him and like sing songs all night, right? And would have that kind of musicality to me as well. And the truth is, I'm just not. Like, that's just not me. I love listening to music, but I'm not someone that's gonna, you know, just like sing along to my boyfriend playing guitar or whatnot. And, it's just one of those things, right? You either naturally love that stuff or maybe you don't, or maybe you can get into it, right? But there are people that love to sing. And so I saw him and his girlfriend and they were like joking that it was like a wild Saturday night and it was just the two of them like sitting in his living room or whatnot, and he was playing a song and she was singing along. And I really just thought to myself, I'm so glad he ended up with her, right? And I don't know if they'll get married or whatnot, but from my cursory stalking, I feel like they're extraordinarily compatible. And it takes bravery sometimes to not settle for good enough, right? To say, hey, there are certain things that it's okay you're not going to be compatible with everything. So it's completely okay if, like, I'm trying to think of what Patrick is he's way more organized than I am. I don't know if that surprised anyone, but I'm a Pisces through and through. I am like a creative hurricane. And he is a Libra with a Virgo rising, heavy, heavy Virgo vibes for him. He's a freaking surgeon, right? He's so clean in particular and orderly and strategic and, methodical. And that's something that really works complementary for us, right? But you have to know what things really set your heart on fire. And so something like the creative expression of your heart's truth, like with that musicality that ex of mine had, or with me with my traveling, right? I have this love of traveling, right? That is something that is worth being bold and courageous and saying, this is who I am. And however that is in love, right? And how you want to. Another thing that I did boldly when it came to love was really look at, when I was really serious about finding my partner, I got really unapologetic about what I wanted that to look like and what dynamic. And one of the things that came up for me when we talk about that full moon energy of actually the culmination of you noticing all of these things that lead up to this turning point, right? So I noticed the culmination of, wow, the one of the theme lines of the men in my life before I met Patrick was they were horrible with communication. They were horrible with calling, with, texting. They were just not good communicators on the day to day, right? And I finally decided before I met him that that was a non-negotiable for me. I want to be in a relationship where that person is going to always be the first person to reach out, where I'm not going to have to second guess anything like that. And so when I started dating after I made that choice, one of the things that I did was I really would just like completely leave the ball in the guy's court. I wouldn't be the one to initiate anything. I would text back, but I would not text first. I would just let them show me who they were. And if they couldn't hang with that, then they weren't for me. And again, a bold move honoring my heart's desire. And I knew instantaneously with Patrick that he was an excellent communicator. communicator. We went on 2 dates, and then I was in Hawaii for a week, and he texted me every single day I was away. And at one point, halfway through, he asked even if he could call, if it wouldn't be too disturbing to my plans, right? And I was like, yes, this is the kind of guy I want. To this day, you know, he over, I don't want to say over communicates because I love it. I love it and it really works well for me, but he's great about, he'll be like in between surgeries and he'll shoot me a text and let me know, hey, we finished first half of the case, like da 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 da, how's your day going? He does it naturally. That's how he is. He'll get out of work and he'll call me on his drive home even though he's coming home to me, right? um and it's something I never have to think about with him. Once again, because I didn't compromise, because I courageously claimed that. That was one of my big heart desires when I really thought about what I wanted. And I want you to think about that, whether it's in your work life, whether it's in your lifestyle right now, whether it's in your love life. What do you want to courageously claim? What truly lights you up? What is that desire in your heart that maybe feels a little bold? That maybe feels a little like you're going to be that lion roaring and people might look at you, right? You're going to have to stand up for this thing. You're going to have to claim it. And this full moon in Leo, I really do feel is our time. It's our time to look at this, these months leading up to this and really say, okay, well, where am I being asked to courageously follow my heart? Where have I been dimming myself? Where have I been playing small? Where have I been compromising in ways that shrink my radiance, in ways that don't allow me to be at my full wingspan and my full joy, don't allow me to be my full self? And how can I now claim that? What am I ready to claim? And so that's my little download for this moon. I hope it's helpful. I hope that, you really reflect on what's coming up for you. And like I always say with the moons, right now for me, while I'm acknowledging where I've done that in my romantic life, I'm really feeling that more and more in my professional life. How can I keep on being more courageous and claim teaching the things and working with the people that truly bring me the most joy, and really turning down that peanut gallery, really being bold and really not allowing other people's preferences to dictate um, whether or not I'm allowed to, quote unquote, follow that thing that lights me up. Like kicking that out the door. You are allowed to follow that thing that lights you up, and you will be exalted when you do. So, what can you release on this full moon that's been holding you back from doing this? And how can you boldly claim that and do something and just have a conversation and take an action step, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's writing a promise in a journal to yourself that you're going to do it, whether it's, saying something on social media and teasing something, whether it's, having a conversation with a loved one, or perhaps doing a ritual where you write down those qualities that you courageously want in your partner. Honor it, honor it, honor it. Thank you for listening to Divine Downloads. As always, if you love this, please leave us a 5-star review. Let me know what you love so much about it. It helps other people discover Divine Downloads. And I am going to be opening up spots in the next couple weeks to work with me one-on-one. So if one of the things that you are really stepping into at this point of your life is being able to courageously be unapologetically you, being able to stand in your confidence and your radiance and the truth of who you are, and be a magnet for whether it's that authentic career, and most expansive way of sharing your gifts with the world, or it's that divine love that you're ready to call in and truly find a partner that's meeting you in that spot of your highest, most expansive self. Feel free to click the link below, and schedule a chat with me in the upcoming weeks to see if we should work together and if it's a good fit and I can help you just shine even brighter and get to that next level of your life. So, love you, love you, love you. And I'll see you next time on Divine Downloads.